What's a subtle sign that someone is very intelligent? Story 1. They are okay with being perceived as stupid by asking questions. If we hold back in fear, we'll never truly learn. Plus, it's a good way to show others it's okay to question things if you don't understand. Better off if we're on the same page, instead of hoping things work out without being informed. Story 2. My freshman college roommate was a mechanical engineer. One of the first nights we were in the dorms, we had pizza delivered. We didn't eat it all, but the pizza box didn't fit inside the dorm fridge. He went all out origami and transformed the box into a smaller, perfectly square box that did fit inside the fridge ... in about 12 seconds. I'm pretty good at math, but not necessarily geometry. My mind was blown. I spent 35 years in academia between my student-teacher years, and he's still one of the 3 smartest people I've ever met. His ability to just do it is dumbfounding to me. His retirement project is transforming his father's 1963 Mercedes convertible into a hybrid that has a small diesel engine that runs on vegetable oil, along with a totaled Tesla Model S battery pack. Story 3. When they take the time to filter through any possible misunderstandings in an argument by asking questions to help them better understand the idea that's being presented, instead of immediately assuming their first interpretation of the argument is the correct one. Something that's always bugged me is when my argument gets misunderstood and then attacked from angles where supposed errors exist, when those errors rose out of the listener's own misinterpretation. Story 4. I have met several off-the-charts intelligent people. One thing I noticed that they have in common was low self-esteem. They had an actual low self-esteem club at the science fiction club I belonged to. The guy who did a lot of the calculations that allowed the Voyager probes to make the grand tour of our solar system was a member of the club. All he could think about were what he didn't know or what he physically couldn't do. The common issue I observed from these bright folks was relentless school bullying. We lose so many of these geniuses to depression, suicide, self-medication, or just flat-out self-inflicted mediocrity. Society in the US does a shitty job of nurturing intelligence. It makes me incredibly angry how many of these people's potential were wasted. I don't include myself in that club. My intelligence is dead average. Frank Zappa said it best when he said that intelligence is treated like a hideous deformity by American society. Story 5. I usually find that creativity, humor, and verbal acuity are good signs of intelligence. I generally see lack of empathy, low openness, and seeing the world in absolutes as signs of low intelligence. Also, I notice many socially inept people tend to consider themselves intelligent, almost just because they're socially inept and/or not good at sports. It's as if their ego needs something to value themselves on, so they assume they must be smart. It's entirely possible that the other guy in your life who makes you insecure is taller, stronger, more charismatic, and smarter. Such is life. Lastly, people, especially tech people, will often conflate technical domain knowledge with intelligence, which is absolutely not always the case. Yes, there is a bare minimum intelligence required to be an engineer, etc., but being an awkward senior engineer doesn't mean you're just too smart for normies to understand, and lack of a specific domain. Knowledge has fuck all to do with intelligence. Story 6. Half of intelligence is critical lateral thinking, and the other half is comprehension. You need to identify what you already know, determine what you need to know, and then how to get there. Identifying the path to knowledge requires you to be attentive and ask the important questions. There is a desired outcome. Whether or not you get there, you have intention which focuses your efforts. With this in mind, I find a subtle sign someone's is very intelligent is when they ask questions and either specify why they are asking or word the question in a way that shows intent. You can clearly tell where they are going with their questions, or if they happen to be asking irrelevant questions, you both figure it out much faster. It helps them get the information they want, but also helps the person answering understand their train of thought and focus their answers. Story 7. They understand that as you begin to learn more about a subject, you enter into this situation where you believe you know far more than you really do. You realize that you know so much more than those who know nothing about that subject. But not that everything you are learning probably has 100 types of nuance and requires deeper understanding. It's kind of related to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know about a subject, the more you think you know, because you don't realize how much there is to know that you don't. It's how you can get people who spend a few minutes on YouTube or Google, spout a bit of lingo they just learned, and don't realize that there's a reason it takes 4 years just to get a bachelor's in most topics and many more to become a specialist. It's infuriating to those who actually have put in the time of study and experience. So yeah, a person who can show that they have some knowledge of a topic, yet remain humble because they realize that there is always more to know. The more you learn about a topic, eventually you realize just how much more there is to know. And it's important to get through that initial arrogance. I fell into this myself when I was in my late teens. I became fairly well read on sustainable horticulture and botany in general. I got a job that was pretty advanced, and I was pretty good at it. Yet after a while I realized that my boss, he was like a fucking plant wizard. He could tell you what the weather was like at night a week ago by looking at the way the flowers presented on the tomatoes we grew. I learned some amazing shit from him once I got over my ego. Story 8. People who ask for others' opinions regularly from a neutral perspective as if the idea or thought is not their own, more of an open-ended question. Often, smart people are very confident internally, but seek the opinions of others because they are conscious and aware of their own biases and flaws. In that same fashion, they usually also have the emotional intelligence to set aside their ego or take a loss if it ultimately results in a better future result or an important lesson learned. They listen and observe more than they talk and choose their battles wisely, and it is why more often than not they come out ahead in most challenging situations they might find themselves in. These types of people, you'd never know how smart they are from their docile nature until someone ignorant, rude, or insulting challenges them on their competency. Then it's an intellectual slaughter. Story 9. A lot of these observations are more indicative of people with high emotional intelligence, which is a very valuable and unique gift. Some are pointing out the negative actions of narcissistic or very ego-centered, which they consider faux intelligence. While these are negative, it really doesn't speak to the lack of intelligence, but rather the negatives of their personalities. Some really intelligent people don't necessarily develop good social skills, but are still extremely intelligent. If you put your ego aside, you can learn a lot from these people. They also don't do what seems offensive on purpose and can take feedback very well. Story 10. Intelligent to do what? You can have a brilliant mind and fly through school with top grades, but as soon as you get a nail and a hammer in your hand and something practical to do, it all falls apart. Or you can be excellent practical work, but at school you are struggling because you don't understand theoretical stuff. The point is that a lot of smart people are good at different things, and measuring how smart people are can be extremely challenging because we are so different. Story 11 depends on what type of intelligence you mean. The smartest of the smarts from a book-smart perspective are typically socially awkward. Their brains operate differently, which is what allows them to think outside of the box and understand extremely complex topics. But because their brains don't operate in the same way as a normal person's does, they don't always pick up on social norms. Most of these people know that they are different, and therefore are hyper-aware of how they differ from people, which can make them try too hard to appear normal in social situations, thus causing them to seem odd. Now, if you're talking about street smarts, they either have super dynamic personalities, or they are the quiet ones in the room. I personally find that quiet ones, the people who listen, and just take in information, are likely smarter than the dynamic people. But dynamic individuals usually have the ability to gain necessary insight quickly. Overall, I think there are so many types of intelligent that it's hard to pin down one sure sign of intelligence. Story 12. I was thinking a lot about this after watching an interview with Magnus Carlsen, who is the best chess player in the world. He was asked about his IQ, to which he replied that IQ tests are meaningless and don't quantify intelligence. He is right. Intelligence can manifest in so many different ways, be it through problem-solving, articulating sentences, memorization, painting, music, learning language, and even things like socializing and being funny. They're all forms of intelligence. So my answer to your question would be that excelling in just about anything is a sign of intelligence. Story 13. My partner is the most logical person I know. I'm the least logical I know. It's a very fun combination. He fixes his own car, and if he doesn't know how, he'll learn instead of getting someone else for it. He also started fixing his PlayStation controllers with no prior experience because they all had stick drift. He'll see a problem and figures out fast how to fix it in a way that actually works well, I admire that so much about him because I seriously lack in that area. I thought my karaoke mic was broken for months before I realized, accidentally, which makes it more sad, that I just needed to replace the batteries. He is not intelligent enough to explain half the things to me, though, as I am a very unmotivated student with no context to even grasp the contexts. So he lacks the part where he can explain things to a child. Story 14 depends on what type of intelligence. For example, someone I dated who grew up in an abusive household who was extremely intelligent when it came to reading people, but also just not intelligent in terms of learning academics. He dropped out of high school, never finished an education, and his EQ was high in some ways. He was really emotionally stunted but could read people well, but IQ, innately there, but he never learned how to learn. I think it's really dependent on nurture, more than people think it is. In some cases, yes, they're born exceptional. Some people can become exceptional in different ways. For some people, they get so damaged in certain ways it changes their brain function. Look up different types of intellect. There's no one blanket category for all. Another example of this is with athletics. Technically, an outfielder is unknowingly doing trig when trying to catch a ball. It doesn't mean they know the equation or can explain it, but it does mean it's intuitive to them on some level. Story 15. I have a cousin with an IQ below average, but you could never tell until you start seeing how his reasoning usually fails him. I wouldn't delegate tasks to him because chances are, for one reason or another, he won't solve the issue. So based on that, smart people have tools to solve issues in a successful way. Even if they don't know how to, they are curious and capable to search for answers and get their goal done. Another thing is my cousin don't question things like people's behaviors or the reason behind things. An intelligent person is capable of analyzing people and situations and go to deep levels to get a better understanding of what's going on. They have an open, inquiring mind. To do that without prejudice and with a neutral attitude is also a proof of intelligence. Story 16. Someone that actually uses resources that are provided to them. And I don't mean your job has a water cooler, so you drink water there instead of bringing your own water. I mean, going to someone that does know what you need to find or what you're supposed to be doing. Also someone that can confront an issue instead of just talking shit behind everyone's back and dealing with the fuck-ups in a respectful way, not a shit-stirring way. My partner would say someone that speaks eloquently, doesn't use slang all the time, and uses bigger vocabulary words. Story 17. I don't even know how to define intelligence anymore. I'm pretty good at math. My wife has to use her fingers to add 5 plus 3. However, my wife can walk into a random kitchen, find a few random ingredients that seemingly wouldn't go together, and whip up an amazing dinner without using a recipe. I can't do that. I can cook, but I need to use a recipe or work from a small list of ingredients I'm comfortable with. I can't do what she does. She can't do what I do. How do I determine who is more intelligent? I can play the piano a little bit. I'm not great at it. I can sit at the keys and, using sheet music and lots of practice, work my way through a relatively simple piece. Others can just sit at a piano and just play music. Let's take Dave Grohl, for example. I guarantee that I got higher standardized test scores than he did. I definitely did better in school. I have an advanced degree. I don't think Dave Grohl finished high school. But Dave Grohl taught himself a bunch of instruments, and without even being able to read music, was able to be the front man of one of the biggest rock groups of all time. He's also written a best-selling autobiography, and damn is it well written. Does my degree make me smarter than Dave Grohl? I doubt it. I think most people have their own strengths and weaknesses. When they are doing something that aligns with their strengths, they seem pretty freaking smart. When they do things that showcase their weaknesses, they can seem pretty freaking stupid. Story 18. When someone has opposing views or thoughts on a subject, instead of arguing, they will try to have a discussion. To understand the other point of view, I love having these convos with my friends, because my friends and I are fairly intelligent and we have long convos. And another example is my stepfather. He is incredibly intelligent. We used to watch documentaries when I was a child, and we would have brainstorming sessions afterwards. I picked a lot up from him and carry that knowledge and outlook with me every day. Story 19. I work with software engineers who insist nobody reads anymore, and can't be bothered with documentation that is staring them in the face if it's more than 250 words long. All their solutions come from Stack Overflow, so consequently they never really learn anything. Just hack everything together until the requirement is met and it works. This is a sign a person is not intelligent. Story 20. From my experience, abstraction of processes within a given domain, and the transmutation of said abstractions for application in a different domain seems to indicate some degree of intelligence, or, at the very least, cognitive flexibility. Here's an example. Languages come in many different forms. The underlying syntax and vocabulary unique to a language family may share characteristics with those of another family. A linguist may derive these patterns and apply them towards learning a different kind of language, mathematics. Story 21. When they're quiet, but alert. I've known a few very smart people who didn't talk much in a loud room, but when they did speak, everyone listened. Also, some of the funniest people I know. They think before they speak and are intentional and active listeners. Being quiet doesn't make someone smart. Brooding introverts that disengage from group activities don't do so because of intelligence, but smart people know when to shut up. Story 22. 1. Subtle sign that someone is very intelligent is their ability to quickly grasp complex concepts and communicate them in a way that is easy for others to understand. Intelligent individuals often have a knack for synthesizing information and drawing connections between seemingly disparate ideas. Additionally, they are often avid learners who are constantly seeking out new knowledge and challenging themselves to grow intellectually. Story 23. I feel like a lot of people here mix up raw intelligence with emotional intelligence and social skills or wisdom. My partner is gifted, and so is one of the kids, which is quite a thing to navigate in our education system. His strength is simply put a combination of excellent pattern recognition elevated by education. He is efficient in everything he does, and his immediate comprehension of complex problems is downright scary in a can he see through the matrix kind of way. He's still only human. He has crappy days and sometimes gets angry and talks like shit to people. He can't explain everything in simple terms, dumb it down, but there is no question he grasps the matter at hand. He isn't always intrigued by everything or curious. He doesn't have specific language he uses. He isn't always humble. He brags when he wins complex board games or in chess or simply counts cards as if it's nothing. When you ask him about something, he might just say, "I don't know why I get it. My brain just runs that way." Very intelligent people aren't always just excellent. They are just people. Since knowing him, I don't believe that there is signs of intelligence you can read from social behavior. All of that is learned, and while it might come easier to intelligent people, at the end of the day you will only know if you see a demonstration of said intelligence, because whoever you're trying to assess, they might just be well-adjusted, kind, or curious people. Story 24. The CIO of the company I'm working for has a person per IT app, programming language, whatever, on his department. Apparently, he has the same knowledge of everyone in his field of expertise combined. He's 65 years old now, and is working on an AI algorithm that could generate everything he's ever done, documented for when he retires, because it is just too much to learn for one person. He realizes his mind is exceptional, but isn't schmuck about it. He also genetically improved the taste strawberries from his garden. They are large, but not too watery, with a perfect sweet and sour balance. It's impressive, honestly. Story 25. Adaptability. Being able to adapt to things while having minimal personal resistance shows a lot for someone's character, in my opinion. Knew this guy I worked with who just moved around his entire life, hardly held a job but built up so many skills. Basically nothing he couldn't learn. Sadly, he killed himself. Me and him had some of the best conversations when we were working together. Story 26. They're not on social media nor Reddit. Don't say things like, "I know an obscure whatever on the internet that tells the truth better than science." Even if they know this toxic internet world, they have enough sense to maintain some healthy distance. It's not immediately obvious these days, where a majority of PPL seem to be very influenced by online life, but someone who is deliberately above that has to be at least a bit more intelligent than the bulk of us. Edit. For the post's topic. I likely miss signs of very high intelligence though, since they're most likely beyond my perception anyway, lol.